we've got Virginie Helias here who's our Chief Sustainability Officer from Procter Gamble. I have to admit, I've been admiring Virginie's work for several years from afar, and it's delighted to meet her in person. I am very delighted to see all of you here in person. So thank you for coming, and thank you to Virginie for making the time. We're going to kick off and just start with some Q&A. Virginie.
Can I just say something, Sandra?
Yes, of course.
So 5 years ago, my nephew called me and said, Virginie, I'm doing something on blockchain. Can you help me and tell me what P&G is doing with blockchain? And I said, block what? And so when I learned that I was speaking here, I texted him and said, you know what? Speaking in Davos about blockchain. Well, I won't speak about blockchain. So
making progress.
Yeah,
yes,
making progress. Exactly.
Absolutely. Well, look, in the time that we have here, I know many of you are fans of Virginie's work and particularly her journey. So let's start with that. What is your role as Chief Sustainability Officer? What does that mean in the context of being at P&G?
It really means three things. Number one, it means embedding sustainability in all our business practices. So from financial analysis to innovation to brand building. That's what I've been doing for the 10 years I've been at it. And I can say it's almost job done, with one exception, which is the whole integrated reporting. Financial, non-financial disclosure. This one is going to be regulated soon, so we are on it. But that's number one. Number two, it is to support our business units to develop sustainable innovation. Innovation that we call it that is superior and sustainable. That's probably the hardest, but also the most rewarding. And my background in marketing and brand building helps a lot. But we are on a journey. And the number three is really to identify the science-based targets on our 4 focus areas that we've identified, like climate, waste, water, and nature. And this is forever work. Like I launched Ambition 2030, our roadmap in 2018. And since 2018, we've already upgraded our goals several times. Last year, it was on climate, the net zero by 2040. And in a few days, it's going to be on water, our new water goals. So forever work, but those are the 3 kind of building blocks of the work.
So I appreciate you describing the work that you're doing, and obviously you've been doing for a while now. How did you get to a place where you became the Chief Sustainability Officer? What is your journey? Yeah,
so Asterix and Obelix? Like I fell in sustainability exactly like Obelix fell in the magic potion. At the time, I was leading our detergent business in Europe, and the business was not doing well. Ariel, the detergent brand, was losing market share and relevance, so I had to find ideas to revitalize the business. So I tested many, and the one that popped to the top was Ariel Clean So Well. You can wash your clothes in low temperature. And I also added, because at the time, the prices of electricity were skyrocketing like today, I said, if you do that, you will see savings on your electricity bill. It was an immediate hit. The share started growing. But 1 year later, something happened that would actually completely shatter my belief and actually also open new horizons. Al Gore launches his movie, The Inconvenient Truth. Oh. It was the first time I heard about global warming. I was fascinated. I took my whole team to watch it. And then a few months later, I learned something that would actually change my career. And that thing was the concept of life cycle assessment, which gives you the impact of your product from cradle to grave. And I learned that for detergent, 80% of the impact comes from the water, the temperature of the washing machine. So then it made me pause, and I said, wait a minute, what just happened? I was able to grow my business in one of the most significant ways, and at the same time reduce the footprint of my product in one of the most significant ways. And from that moment, I actually did 2 things. I changed the campaign line of my campaign, and so it said, with Ariel, you can wash your clothes in low temperature and get great results. And if we do it all together, we could save enough energy to light up 1,000 villages. That was the campaign in France. that we then launched globally. And then I did another thing. I said, I need to upskill myself. I need to know more about sustainability. So I volunteered for a project. And in 2011, I'm going to this seminar by WWF, which is called the One Planet Leader. Mm-hmm. I was kind of the odd one out because it was all sustainability professional, and I was still doing that as a hobby. And at the end of the week, you know, when you kind of share your key takeaways, I committed to the group that I would make sustainability my job. And I had absolutely no idea how to do that. But 2 weeks after that seminar, I'm flying to Cincinnati. I asked to talk to the CEO. I got 20 minutes. And in those 20 minutes, I explained why we needed to create a position that would bridge the science of sustainability. So we had a big group of environmental stewards. They were toxicologists, scientists, but no relation with the business. And so bridging the science with the business. Mm. And I said, by the way, that's the job I want. And he said, okay. And that was the first director of global sustainability, which became vice president, senior vice president, and then the first CSO of the company. And they kept me in the job.
That is brilliant. And you were even doing the sustainability work before you even realized you were doing with Ariel. Yeah. Fantastic. Which, by the way,
because in the end, it's smart business. When you do it well, it is smart business, you know, and it makes cheaper and better often.
You raise an excellent point there, which is a lot of times people think that if you go green or if you're trying to be sustainable, that somehow that's not profitable. And I think we really need to turn the tide on that thinking, because actually it's almost many times the opposite.
Yes, but it is with the condition that you do it upfront, you know. Mm-hmm. We call it built-in, not bolted on. Because take innovation, for instance. Mm-hmm. If you develop your innovation, and at the end you say, okay, now how do I make it sustainable? First, your operating window is very small, and then it will be more expensive. So for instance, life cycle assessment, I say it's not a diagnosis tool, it's an input tool. And by the way, this is where technology is really helpful, because we want to democratize life cycle assessment. We want this to be the tool for all our innovators to use to inform, to be more informed on which material to choose between two ingredients, which material for my packaging, is it plastic or paper? And they need to have access very upstream to those type of tools.
And if I may add on to that, how close are we for your third-party or external partners to be able to participate in that? Are we far away from that? Is that possible for them to actually participate as well? Suppliers or partners?
Well, we basically can't do it with them. You know, we have now a goals of net zero by 2040.
Yeah.
That includes our operation, but also our supply chain. You know, and our supply chain, that means all our scope 3. For them, it's scope 1 and 2. We're actually partnering with them to help them decrease their scope 1 and 2 so that it will decrease our scope 3. But that's work that absolutely needs to be done in partnership with our suppliers.
That is a huge target, 2040.
It's 2040.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
And we have interim goals as well, because we find 2040. No, we really want to build accountability in the company. When you say 2030, which leader will still be there in 2040? So we have a 2030 goal for supply chain, which is a 40% reduction of our carbon intensity level across our supply chain.
Yes, it's always important to have some interim steps before you get to the moonshot big goal. So let's talk a little bit about P&G itself. It is an enormous company. You have many, many different product lines. Everybody in this room uses at least one, if not multiple products that P&G produces, we hope. So when you're talking to the business lines, who you're obviously working with, what are some of the challenges that you've seen around just either education or understanding around why this is so important?
Yes.
And how have you gotten there?
I'm going to tell you because that's really the work of 10 years. And when I started in this job, I had this intuition that this job was not about sustainability. It was all about change management. And so I turned to several resources, and the one that became my guide is a book from Dan and Chip Heath. It's called Switch, driving change when change is hard, which is exactly appropriate for the task.
Yes.
And the authors use the analogy of a rider driving an elephant. And to drive effective change, you need to do three things. You need to direct the rider, you need to motivate the elephant, and you need to shape the path. And the rider is your rational part of your organization, and the elephant is the emotional and political part. And for each of the strategy, you have three tactics. I'm going to give you some example because it really answers your question.
Yes.
And it is multifaceted. There is not one size fits all. It's a toolbox of tactics. So for directing the rider, you need first to point to the destination. And this is why in 2018 I launched Ambition 2030. It was a very clear direction. All the goals were trickling down to the business units. And when last year I went to my CEO saying, I want to refresh Ambition 2030, he said, okay, but don't change the name because you have really built an equity there. Once you have pointed to the destination, you need to what they call follow the bright spots. And the bright spots are basically your proof points that it can be done. My best proof point coming into the job was my aerial story. But then I had another one that happened here in Davos in 2017. And it was the launch of this, which became one of the 8 things not to miss in Davos. So maybe some of you have seen this. And it is Head and Shoulder, which usually comes in a bottle that is white. Mm-hmm. So that's the equity of the bottle. So to change the equity at P&G, it's not a small deal. And why is it gray? Because it's made of plastic collected from the beaches of France, because we did the pilot in France. That's why it's mixed plastic and gray. And this was a watershed moment in terms of convincing people internally. Because what happened is we had many, especially in marketing, skeptics. Each time I said, guys, you need to do more on sustainability, they would say, what's the business case? Which is not a very obvious excuse for not doing anything, right? What's the business case? When this happened, nobody was asking for the business case anymore because they saw it as a huge brand idea. This is such a strong statement of, guys, recycling is not enough. You can help us by recycling your shampoo bottle in your bathroom. And so when I said, but, to those guys, I would say, that this is 40 times more expensive than your regular bottle. They said, we don't care. It's such a great brand idea. So we call this making sustainability irresistible. So you lower all your internal barriers. So follow the bright spot. And then the third tactic in pointing to the destination, in directing the riders, is to script the critical moves. Because this is very difficult for people internally to know where to start. And They say, I understand this is where we need to go, but tell me, what's the first, the second, the third step? And I would always tell them, you first need to understand where you have the biggest impact. And again, it's my aerial story. It's knowing where you can make the biggest difference. Start there. So know your impacts, across your product cycles and develop strategy that address those. Once you've done that, you are not done because the biggest task is ahead. You need to motivate the elephant. Mm-hmm. How do you motivate the elephant? 3 things. 1, you find the feelings. I spent the first 3 years in the job acting like an HR, going from leader to leader, trying to understand what their motivation could be. And it was very different from leader to leader because sustainability can be very personal. And I was trying to understand where I can meet their personal story with this. And so sometimes for this leader, it was, I don't want to leave a legacy of my packaging littering the streets of this city in LA that he saw when he was doing a business trip. It was a very strong motivator. For some, it was my grandkids. For some, it was my love for nature. Or simply, it was, I need a great differentiating idea on my business. Whatever the motivation, if there is one, it will move the elephant.
Yeah.
The second thing in motivating the elephant is that you need to shrink the change because it is a daunting task. If you tell people, okay, you need to move all your innovation to sustainable innovation, they will not do it. Yeah. It's too much of a change, it's too much of a risk. Yep. So this is where you start with pilots. And when we launched Loop here 3 years ago, Loop, it's the new milkman, the modern milkman, durable, refillable packaging. We didn't do it in every country. We started in France and in the US, and then we added Japan. You shrink the change, you make it easier for people. And the third tactic is growing your people. It's all about upskilling, but it's upskilling at every level of the organization, including your C-suite. And your C-suite, the best way I found to upskill your C-suite in a way that is a bit indirect, because they don't really want to recognize that they know absolutely nothing. Not only they know nothing, but they know less than the people who they just hired. It's a bit embarrassing. So I created the external advisory board. So I chose basically the best, thought leaders, practitioners. This year I have a young climate activist. Those people who will come to your headquarters once or twice a year to inspire, challenge, and really educate your C-suite is absolutely fascinating. And then, and I'll be finished, shaping the path. Shaping the path is about making it systemic. So to shape the path, they say you need to tweak the environment. And tweaking the environment for us means making sustainability part of our growth model. At P&G, our growth model, and you can see that everywhere, we've been talking about it for 5 or 6 years, it's the 5 vectors of superiority. You need to have, to grow your business, a superior product, a superior packaging, superior communication, retail execution, and value. And so we are explaining how we are building in our sustainability in each of those vectors of superiority. That's making it systemic. The second thing to make it systemic is to create habits. What behaviors do you want to drive as norms? And one way we do it is that we have this yearly employee survey. And I ask every year simply 2 questions, because for me those are the most important questions. First one is, my sustainability is a priority, is a business priority in my organization. Second one is that I am empowered to contribute to my organization's sustainability effort. And with that, I can track by business unit, by function. I do all those breakouts. This is an amazing tool to motivate people, to do more. And the last one on this shaping the path is called, now I just forgot it.
It'll come back to you.
It will come back. But you see, when I started in this job, the third one is called rallying the herd. Because elephants, they look for cues on how to behave. And for me, rallying the herd is those traffic light charts where you have, green, yellow, red by business. And people hate seeing their name next to a red, right? So it's actually very motivating, and they tend to behave like the others. And so it's another tactic. So when I started in this job, I thought that the only thing I had to do was to have a sustainability KPI on the general manager scorecard. Very soon, I realized that it was a red herring. What I needed to do was directing the rider, motivating the elephant, and shaping the path. And that's what I've done. And by the way, today, the executive compensation is linked to ESG metrics.
Wow.
So that was the work of 10 years. And so I really encourage you, if you have, for any change that is hard, this book is amazing. And the tactic, and it's very concrete and very practical.
I think we just got a master class on how to move an elephant, move the Titanic, take something incredibly daunting, break it down, and find the right ways. Over time, be patient, but persistent.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Wow. I have no more questions. I'm kidding. I do have more questions. And we are going to get to blockchain. Don't worry. Let's talk about water. I know you've got 4 different initiatives, but let's talk about water, because I think that's a very interesting part of what you do. And the little that I do know on the inside of P&G is when you look at their products and you look at your house, every single one of their products where you have water, there is a P&G product, whether it's your laundry room, your kitchen, your bathroom. Think about that for a moment. That's pretty much good, decent part of your house.
70% of our products need water to be used. Yeah,
So-
that's correct.
So talk to us a little bit about the water side and how some of the projects.
Yeah.
Not everyone may be familiar.
So obviously, we're announcing new water goals in a few days, so I won't talk about those. But I can tell you that for us, water hasn't made really the headlines, like climate has, both for business and in policy, because water is by definition very local. And so if you are not in a water stress area, you feel less involved and touched by the topic. But what we've done, and we started with that, was to map out the regions that were for us critical in terms of priority area to address water. And so it's basically a combination of water-stressed areas, as defined by WRI and other experts, big P&G consumer markets, where we have a supplier presence and where we have manufacturing sites. And with that, we have 18 priority areas. So all our plants, and we have 33 plants in those areas, in those 18 areas across 7 countries, they all have now very specific action plan to address water scarcity in their watershed. But what I'm most excited about is that always when we do things, we try to have program where brands can chip in, that can actually also be commercialized. So not only you do the things that have an impact industry-wide, like, for instance, restoring water in those big watershed areas where we have manufacturing presence, and we partner with experts on the ground to bring more water, to make more water available. But we also encourage our brands to join in. So, for instance, Cascade, the dishwasher brand.
Yes.
So in the US, it's very interesting. There is a very high penetration of dishwasher, but a relatively low usage of it. And you know why? Because people think that they are going to spend more water and energy using their dishwasher, which is actually not correct. Because a running faucet uses 4 gallons of water every 2 minutes, which is the amount of water used in a full load of dishwashing. So actually, you can save water by moving from hand washing to your auto dish, as long as you don't pre-rinse your dishes, which many of us do. Before putting the dishes in the dishwasher, this is where you spend a lot of water. So Cascade, our auto dish brand, has a formulation that allows you to skip the rinse, and then you can save money by using your dishwasher, which is a win-win-win, because who doesn't want to, save time and money now and energy, doing that? It's a $130 saving per year. It's 100 gallons of saving of water per week if you do that. So Cascade not only have their innovation and communication program on water, but they also partner with an organization called Change the Course in the US, and their goal is to replenish the depleted basins with as much water as people use in their dishwasher. So, it's a very holistic program that has education, innovation, but also a bigger impact that touches actually many households. Since the beginning of this campaign, and habit change takes time, but here we've seen plus 25% increase in usage of dishwasher, which means 25 billion liters of water saved in 18 months across the US. So, because of the scale of our brands, the impact is also very big. So that's how we link everything we do on water, as an example.
Amazing. And by the way, for the record, I am glad this is being recorded, because I am going to show this to a family member of mine who insists on washing dishes in the sink. So now I have data
an argument. Yes.
and stats from the expert here. Thank you so much. So let's talk about blockchain. We have a few minutes. I will open it up for 1 or 2 questions to Virginie. But what about blockchain itself and technology, and many emerging technologies, but not just blockchain, but how do you guys approach how you bring in a new technology and whether it makes sense for you or not to implement?
So obviously, this is a big question and a big topic.
Sure.
I'm going to focus on where I think that there is most potential. And I think the panel before us touched on this. In the area of responsible sourcing. I think this is the area where digitalization, technology, and blockchain can help us make the most progress. So for instance, palm oil. We use a lot of palm oil in our detergent, in our shampoos. We have a no deforestation strategy, but the hard thing is to be able to monitor it. So we've partnered with Earthqualizer, which is an organization that basically is using mapping satellite technology. What they basically do is that they use a public satellite image, overlay with concession maps, and with that they're able to see the land use change over time. And for us, very handy. We get notified where there is a violation compliance issue, and we can follow up with the supplier and make sure that there is a remediation plan in place. With that, in 2 years, we started in 2020, we've been able to monitor almost 14 million hectares of land, 500 supplier groups. So it's really helping us. Yeah. So not blockchain, but blockchain is coming then. Yeah. We are working with a company called Transparency One. Anyone from Transparency One here, or you know? Yeah. And they use blockchain, you know. And so it allows us to really map our supply chain in great details and have this platform where we can exchange data, you know, from chain of custody to product integrity to supplier compliance data. It's the beginning, but we are seeing the value of this. This is something we started in our beauty care business. So it's palm, but it's also coconut. It's mica. It's guar. And so we are able to trace in a way that is the standard of the future. So we have to do it. We're still learning, but clearly something that will enable us to achieve our sustainable sourcing goals.
As a leader, you've already given us lots of great tips, but what do you think about how we bring more women in particular, but also just in general, lots of different voices to the table? What has worked for you?
Yeah. You know, I talk about women in terms of what are the specific qualities that women bring, which are the feminine values more than women, because I think men can have also those values. But in my space, it's very interesting to see that women tend to be more collaborative, have more empathy, work on win-win solution, and for me, that's the definition of successful sustainability jobs, you know. So there is obviously a great fit between doing that job and what women can bring. I believe in diversity, so women and men collaborating together. What's very interesting as well is the idea of women empowerment and sustainability. Yes. Because, you know, on several topics, I mean, if you take, for instance, sustainable sourcing, for instance, we work with we've partnered with the Guar initiative, which is about educating farmers so that we teach them sustainable agricultural practices, and we focus on women, because we know that if we focus on women, actually we'll have better results in terms of more sustainable practice, more yield. And so, you know, we see that, and same for water. I mean, we talk about water. You know that today, 200 million hours are spent by women fetching water in the world, you know, hours that could be obviously used for girls' education and getting a job outside the home. Yep. So I think there is such a great equation between women empowerment, women in leadership, and sustainability. It's a very rich topic. I mean, I'm like so thrilled to see so many women here. I would not have imagined that for a blockchain discussion, but that's fantastic.
Well, you have certainly a large fan club here. I'll take one question from the audience. I'm sure there are actually lots, but we'll let the gentleman speak here.
Biodegradability of packaging.
Michael, could you introduce yourself, please?
I'm Michael Tracy, chairman of the Global Running Foundation with my lovely wife, Natalia. The biodegradability. Would you foresee a future where literally 100% of what you have packaged, it's all biodegradable? And like, when would you foresee that? And then the second part of that question is, the company that's supplying the white plastic for the Head & Shoulders bottle is in the process of losing that contract. Therefore, are you able to work with that company on them being the company that is recycling the plastic bags for the new packaging, or are you finding that you have to go find new companies to do the thing that you want to do?
Okay, 3 questions in one. In market research, we would disqualify that, but I'm going to answer that. So the first one, the short answer is no. I don't see a future with 100% biodegradability. Actually, the goal that we've set for ourselves by 2030 is 100% recyclable or reusable. Why not biodegradable? It can be one way, but in very limited application, because biodegradable is only so in very specific conditions. You know, it would not biodegrade in landfill. Unfortunately, many of packaging end up in landfill. It biodegrades in, you know, kind of industrial biodegradable condition, which is not available everywhere. And biodegradable, in consumer minds, say, okay, so I can litter, it will biodegrade. So it has really several unintended consequences. So right now, we don't encourage our business to go biodegradability. We say, first you do recyclable or reusable, then we'll talk. Maybe there will be innovation, after 2030 that will change my answer. But right now, it's not the direction we are taking. On Head and Shoulders, we actually work with them because our main partner was Alpla, who is doing our bottle. So we didn't go and find someone else. We had to find someone to collect the plastic on the beaches. We worked with TerraCycle and to wash it and to, but Alpla was the main supplier and is the main supplier for our bottles. So the other thing I should say is that it's not like we moved our whole volume to that. I mean, this was kind of a limited edition. The point was not to be a solution to the problem of plastic waste. The point was to educate people. It was really a consumer education tool to say, something is happening here, this is how you can help.
And that is valid for the cascade example with the dishwasher. Educating,
But educating in a way, yeah, but educating, and actually I use the word, I don't like it. I prefer making it irresistible. Because, then there is no other option. And even if they are skeptic, they still go through it because they want to save time using their dishwasher, So it's educating, but you need to have a big traction for the education. Yes?
I would love to, unless you have a minute, but I'm being very mindful. We've got
manager here.
Yeah, you've got to go. Yes.
Got to go. Okay.
So I want to thank everyone, and especially Virginie. Thank you for the time. Half an hour flew by. Actually, it was a little bit more than half an hour. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Great.